thank you very much for having me here today. As mentioned, I'm here from Defence Force Recruiting. Let me get into the presentation, show you what we're all about. Today, we're going to talk a bit about the Australian Defence Force, engineering and IT roles, how you can actually get into the Australian Defence Force to do any of those roles, some of the great lifestyle and benefits that are available to anybody that joins. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about fitness because that's important too, how to join and how we can stay connected. But maybe just a little bit more about myself. As mentioned, my name is Jeff Thornton. I'm a Navy aerospace engineer. I've been in the Defence Force for coming up on 12 years. Not all of that as an engineer, but mostly. And my background, I joined in the middle of my career. So opportunities are available for many people at all stages of their career. So let's talk a little bit about the Australian Defence Force. What is it that we actually do? Well, our job is to defend Australia and its national interests, to be able to do what government tells us to do so that we can maintain a great lifestyle here in Australia. Some of the ways we do that is through providing humanitarian aid and disaster relief. Now, you might remember a number of months ago, or about 18 months ago, a lot of Australia was on fire. We had many bushfires. Australian Defence Force was able to help our Australians get out of very dangerous situations. You might know about the pandemic and that the fact that the Australian Defence Force is very much involved in helping and supporting the efforts in contact tracing, etc., and many other capacities with the pandemic, with COVID-19. But we also go looking for ways that we can help our neighbours in the Pacific region. So often some of our islands are afflicted by cyclones and we will be able to provide them humanitarian aid. So that's a big part of what we do. Obviously, as part of the Australian Defence Force, we get involved in border protection. Think of Australia as a great big island. Most of what we have in Australia comes into the country via shipping. So we need to protect those shipping lines. We make sure that there's no illegal fishing or any bad things coming into the country, but we do get all the good things that we want. And of course, as part of what government gives us direction is that we get involved in training for conventional warfighting. And that's simply the fact that in our global community, there are oftentimes people or countries that may not want to communicate and work well with us. And so we need to be part of the opportunity to ensure that our lifestyle and our safety is protected. So let's talk a bit about engineer and then we'll talk a bit about IT. So what does an engineer do in the ADF? Well, as an engineer, we are officers, which means that we lead people. We use our engineering skills to solve problems. We want to make sure that all of the technical tradespeople that do the magnificent work in servicing and repairing and maintaining all of the equipment that we have in the ADF we give them the opportunity to do their job to the best of their ability. So we often help them with their tools and resources and training, providing technical expertise and building that team relationship so we can do our job really well. We kind of work in 4 key areas as an engineer, and that is in that operational, capability acquisition, sustainment and safety. So the first area, operational, that's where we actually might work on a ship or go out with a group of soldiers with all of the tools and equipment that they need, and so that we can work out in a crazy environment out bush or in a hostile environment. So we get to be engineers looking at maintenance and support, planning, looking after our teams, and really being that engineering manager. As you can probably appreciate, the Australian Defence Force buys a lot of equipment. You can see on the screen there some helicopters sitting on a ship. We have tanks and trucks and super fast jet fighters. We buy a lot of things. And so we as engineers get involved in all planning what we are going to buy, and also making sure that when we do purchase something, that it is being well looked after throughout the entire time that we have it. Sometimes, like for example, our ships we might keep for 30 years. So we need to repair, maintain, fix, service, upgrade, and engineers get involved in all of the planning, the testing, and the designing for that. And finally, the big part about what engineers will do is look after the safety of all of our teams, so our people, and all of the equipment, the capability that we have. So we are very much involved in ensuring that all the designs are done to the highest level in accordance with the best design standards. We make sure that we comply with all the regulations that we have to. We continually look for ways to make things better in a system of continual improvement. But we also have to work within legislation. Now, there's rules that the government say everybody must work within, for example, work health safety rules. And so we make sure as engineers that we do that. There's a number of different jobs that you can do in the Australian Defence Force as an engineer. Here's a quick list of them, and I've highlighted them, as you can see: Navy, Army, Air Force. I've got a blue ring around the jobs that are predominantly focused in the air domain. The grey ones under the Navy are the maritime domain, and the green ones are in the land domain. So depending on what kind of engineer you want to be and where you would like to work, we pretty much have a job that can help you. Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the communications, IT and intelligence in the ADF, because as you can appreciate, everything that we do is high tech. When we communicate from, say, for example, a ship at sea to a group of soldiers on the land, we need to do that securely and safely. So our communications is going to be very encrypted. We have not just vocal communications, but we have data. And so we have people operating in that sort of data encryption space. We need people operating in surveillance and intelligence and reconnaissance. So we need people with good computer, data, analytic skills. We also get involved in understanding what's going on in our environment. As you can imagine, think about a submarine under the water. They might use sophisticated sensor equipment to go out into the environment and basically have a listen to what's going on. And then we have teams of people that actually can interpret what they hear and then create a particular data or intelligence around that and then share that with decision makers. And of course, most importantly, we have cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is an area that is impacting everybody's life, not just in the Defence Force, but in our community. Every business has to be aware of the threats and challenges that come along from operating in an IT or digital world. So I guess some of the roles that you can get involved in this space is, let's start with that communications. Let's keep the ADF communicating effectively and secretively. So as you can imagine, we've got ships and submarines, we've got tanks and trucks and people on land. We might have a group of people in the Air Force flying cargo planes, or they might be involved in flying the Joint Strike Fighter. Everybody needs to communicate with everybody else so that they can achieve the mission that the government directs us to do. And then there will be a central point on land, which is like the command and control place. And so they are the ones that need to ensure that all the instructions are given out to everybody so that we can all be on the same page. That kind of communications requires great technology in whether you're a computer analyst, whether you're a data analyst, whether you're a linguist, whether you are involved in protecting our communications, whether you're looking at radio frequency communications. All of that area is an area that is very important to us. We need people not only to operate that and analyse data, but we also need people to fix and maintain it so it's always available for when we need it. As you can appreciate, when we go off and do a mission, whether that is to help Fiji because of a cyclone, or whether that's to do an exercise out in the somewhere in the South China Sea, we have very strategic ways of doing business. So we need to make sure that all of that communications, all that information is given to the decision makers. And so people get involved in all aspects of this. Let me talk a bit about how you can actually join the ADF and become a member of this exciting opportunity. We have essentially two pathways, if you like. We have what we call the general entry pathway, and then we have the officer entry pathway. So the general entry pathway is really exciting because we take people from year 10 onwards into various roles and give them all the training that they need to operate, to analyse, and to be part of that communications, IT, and technical infrastructure. You receive ongoing training and development, and these are the people that are going to be working hands-on with that state-of-the-art technology. Once you've gained the basics, we continued growing and developing you by giving you training to work with the organisation to become more of a senior person, which is quite exciting. At that point, you start to lead teams of other technical and really highly skilled trained people, so that where you were a few years ago, you're now leading those people. So that's one pathway. And the great part about that, like I say, is that you can you don't have to come in as a after university. We have options for people to come in right from after they've completed year 10. But if you do want to go to university, and of course, biased, I would always recommend people to go to university. It's an exciting opportunity to get some great education. You can come in that officer or graduate pathway. And so these are the people that would lead the teams of those technical people. This is where you can get that leadership focus, where you can not only work with the day-to-day situation, but you can get involved in planning strategically about what's going to happen in the future and how best that we're going to meet the needs of the mission and what government wants us to do. Quite often, the officer entry path is for those people either going to go to university or those people that already are or have graduated from university. Let me talk about university for a moment, because this is exciting. The Australian Defence Force Academy is the University of New South Wales Canberra campus, and it's based in Canberra, of course. And this is the academy where you can get a number of different degrees, where you go and live in Canberra, you study there, we pay all your fees and all your books, and then we give you a guaranteed job at the end of it. As you can see on the screen, you can do engineering, you could do computer and cyber security, you could do science. But in addition to all of that academic, we give you all the leadership and management training throughout that degree, so that by the time you graduate, not only are you a great operator as far as whether you're an engineer or a cyber security professional, but you're also a great leader. So the Australian Defence Force Academy is specialised in that area. But often we know that going to an environment like that might not be for everyone. So we have what we call the Defence University Sponsorship. So for example, say you were wanting to study at RMIT University. What you can do is once you go start your degree, you can join the ADF as a student. We pay you a great salary. We pay the remainder of all your university fees, and you graduate knowing that you will have guaranteed employment at the end of it. In this way, you don't have as much contact with the Australian Defence Force military side of things like you do in ADFA, but we take care of all of that at the end of your degree. And generally what you do is that you do a semester's worth of study and then you apply to us. Really, both ADFA and university sponsorship, great ways to help you not only get the education that you want, but guarantee you the job at the end of it. So look, coming to the end of the presentation, there's a whole bunch of benefits that come along with working in the ADF. A few of them are just there. For myself, it's all about being able to work with really professional people, invest into myself professionally, but also to be able to help others achieve their own goals. Yes, we get great salaries, we get free dentists, free medical appointments, we can go to any gym on any base for free, etc. Look, we can join sporting organisations, but really at the end of the day, it's whatever you want to make it, and it's very exciting. As such, you know, we want people to join the Australian Defence Force that have a great passion for helping others, a great deal of courage that they want to put themselves into situations where they will be tested to reach their own personal excellence. This is what we really want to see. People with leadership potential who love working with teams, people that want to take all of their STEM aptitude and be curious problem solvers, and then help others to do the same. That's the kind of people that we're really looking for at the moment. I mentioned we're going to talk about fitness, and I'm just going to quickly share this with you. So generally, you go to these kind of activities and you come to the ADF, the Defence Force Recruiting stand, if we were face-to-face, and we would give you a pen and we'd give you a water bottle. Unfortunately, virtual can't do that today, but what I can give you is the ADF Active app. So go to Play Store, your Apple App Store, and download the ADF Active. It's a free app. It'll help you get fit and stay fit. Teaches you how to do push-ups and sit-ups, helps you do those beat tests, set goals, allow you to stay physically fit. And folks, the reason why I say that is because if you have a healthy body, you're going to have a healthy mind. And whether you choose to join ADF or go to some of these other wonderful companies that have been presenting today, we all need to be fit and healthy, especially now in these troubled times that we're living in, where there's lots of threats to our health. Staying fit is a great thing. So this is a free app. Get onto the Play Store, App Store, and download it. Just very quickly, there are 6 steps to join the ADF, and all of these steps are about having a conversation with us to see what would suit you and see whether it would be good for you. What I will say is that when you go through these steps, at any point, it's that conversation, and you're not being obligated to join. You don't get obligated to join until you choose to sign and then swear allegiance to Queen and country. All those other steps there, folks, are about you determining whether you are the right fit for the ADF, and the ADF determining whether you are the right person to join. And it's a two-way conversation. Plenty of mentoring. One of my jobs is to mentor every engineer that comes into the ADF to help them along their process. So look, that's the end of my presentation. Some social media there for you to keep in contact. I will say that whether you want to be asking questions about engineering or IT and cyber security, I have an email address there, engineers@dfr.com.au, and really happy for you all to stay in touch. And I think we're going to probably be taking a few questions now. Yeah, great stuff. What I might do is I might just close the screen down.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
First question is, what did you study at university?
That is a great question. Now, I went to university a really long time ago. I went to University of South Australia and studied electronics engineering. Since then, I've had the opportunity to study a number of different other things, both in engineering and in other areas. But yeah, primarily electronics.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question. Can you fly a plane?
No, I wish I could. That'd be so cool. As an aerospace engineer, I mainly work with helicopters, but I can't even fly a helicopter, but I do get to go in helicopters, which is pretty fun.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. What is your favorite part of your job?
Well, right now I'm working with Defence Force Recruiting, and in the Defence Force, we get a chance to work in a number of different areas and keep changing because that develops us as people. The best part is about working with the helicopters, without a doubt. They are such great pieces of equipment. I get to work with fantastic people really closely. I get to work with pilots, and they are just so that they're mad. They're so exciting to be with because they fly these things. Yeah, and I get to watch them have fun too. So it's just a great time.
Yeah. Are there any extra requirements to get a job at Defence Force Recruiting? Example is, do I have to pass any physical tests?
Yes, look, there are a number of different things that you will need to do. Yes, there is a physical test. And, the reason why we want people to be fit and pass that physical test, which I will say, folks, I did it when I was an old guy. And if I can do it, anyone can. I'll just say that outright. But it's so that we can maintain our ability to do our job. It's not about being a gym junkie. It's just about being fit and healthy.
What exactly do you do on a daily basis at Defence Force?
Okay, well, look, for me as an engineer, when I'm working in that operational environment, like working with the helicopters, I'm often involved with working with the technical teams that fix and repair all our helicopters. So I get involved in planning, technical oversight, helping problem solve, working together to try and solve something that we don't know how to solve. They ask me as an engineer, I ask them as the expert in that particular area. So it's dynamic, it always changes because every day there's a new problem to solve. When I'm not in that operational sense, I might take a little more longer view of solving problems and rather than on the daily day-to-day basis, but look, maybe 6 months ahead, 12 months ahead, what's coming up? What do I need to plan for today so we can make a good decision in a year's time, for example?
Yeah. Have you ever felt in danger when working in the army?
Well, look, no, I think that's a really mature question, actually, because our job can often be to go into environments which are a little hostile. And that might not just be because somebody doesn't like us. It might be that we're in a dangerous environment working on a warship. In the engine room, there's some pretty big equipment, big engines that keep those ships moving. Our goal, especially as engineers, is to champion safety and make sure that not only the way we do our job, but the people that do the job are always well looked after.
Yeah. Will you stay in the Navy until you retire?
Yeah, yes, I probably will. I joined, as I mentioned, I joined later in my career. So I had done about 20 years worth of work in the civilian world, and I'm really excited about being well, I'm in the Navy at the moment, but I'm really excited about spending the rest of my career in the Navy just because of the excitement, the great opportunities, the diversity. It's such a great inclusive environment in which to work. And yeah, so yes, definitely will be there till retirement. Hopefully you guys aren't thinking about retiring yet.
Yeah. Have you worked overseas in the military?
A very small amount of time overseas. My job doesn't require me to go overseas very often, but for example, one of my colleagues in the Air Force right now as an engineer is working overseas on deployment. So yeah, he's in the Middle East, and yeah, so often we do get that opportunity, doubly so in the Navy where we do work around in the water and then go to different countries, COVID permitting.
Yeah. What are your daily tasks to do at Defence Force recruiting?
Oh, that's a good question. So my job is I focus on engineers and helping engineers make the best decisions for them. So I often spend a lot of time talking with engineer candidates, people who are applying for jobs, helping them understand what they need to do for preparation. There's usually a couple of big job interviews, and I mentor many people through those interviews. I also love to get out and talk to people at events like this, or go to universities or industry meets where I can just basically tell people what opportunities are out there. So yeah, that's pretty much my day. It's quite busy.
Yeah. Here's another interesting question. Have you been to a war?
No, I haven't. And that, again, that's another mature question because as I mentioned in the beginning, one of the jobs in the military, the Australian Defence Force, is to defend Australia. And that means that sometimes people do go into environments that are hostile. I'm lucky that I have not been into those, I guess, combat frontline roles. And that's lucky for me. But I do take the serious nature of what I do when I'm fixing a helicopter or being part of that team. That's because I want the pilot and his crew to potentially go into a combat environment. So I have to be just as focused on professionalism and safety and good engineering as if I was right out there at the front line.
Yeah. Where do you see the industry going in the future?
That's a great question, and things that we are really developing. We talked about IT and engineering today, but certainly the space domain is an area where we are looking at developing a lot more capability. So satellite, we obviously use satellites. Cybersecurity is a huge growing area because it's a massive concern. It's almost non-conventional warfare, and we have expertise in warfare, so we're able to help bring that expertise not just for the Australian Defence Force, but for the Australian community generally. And we work with defence industry, we work with other industry partners, And so cybersecurity is a big area. Probably the third area is the autonomous vehicles, whether that's under the water or in the air, just those autonomous vehicles that operate without having a person physically driving them, say like a drone or whatever. They are piloted by someone on land, but they're flying obviously like a drone. And we do that under the water too with submarines, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. What would you do differently if you could go back in time?
I think I would probably have joined the ADF earlier, especially the Navy. I'm biased. I love the Navy. I think it's really great, the ships and the submarines and the aircraft. It's exciting. I would probably have joined earlier so that I could have been involved a lot more. Obviously, joining later in life, I have a finite time left in my career. But yeah, that's probably what I'd do.
Yeah. I just think we have time for one final question. How has your job changed since the pandemic? Do you prefer pre or post-COVID in regards to working?
Look, I love working with people. There's nothing like being in a room with a group of people. Obviously, we have to be careful about that. Defence is an essential service, and so some people are still doing that. But as you can see, I'm working at home at the moment, and so certainly right now working from home is become more acceptable in the Defence Force for those people that can do that. So I would like to think that once the pandemic, we've got over the main hurdle of it, that we will still maintain that flexibility to work at home or at work as we need.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing your experience at Defence Force Recruiting.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, folks, and I appreciate being able to come today.